Now, when it comes to Drake, right within this forced comeback effort that he is trying to make that nobody wants to see with Nokia and so many other antics, Drake just made a move so reckless that he really messed up bad this time, and he didn't just disrespect hip-hop or other rappers, but he straight up disrespected the guy who he once said he idolized in Michael Jackson. And with what Drake just did, there has never been more glaring proof that he is so far gone, because he really just messed with the wrong people. And now, before we go any further into this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe, it helps me out a ton. And as Drake has now disrespected really the guy who he has said he wants to be like more than anybody else, really be sure to leave that like so all of music knows how far gone he is and how bad of a choice he just made. And so now, with all that said, when it comes to Drake, if you have been looking around at what's been going on within hip-hop and music recently, you would have seen that ever since Drake has dropped his Nokia video, there has been a clear and obvious play from his team that has been trying to trick everybody into believing that he is making some sort of a comeback. And now, while Drake has been faking records and making up narratives to try and make himself look better while also taking down Kendrick Lamar in the process, none of that even matters to him, as there has been one thing he has needed more than anything else to try and trick everybody about where his career is at, and that was going to be to get Nokia to go #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Also, that after his quote-unquote new record came out of him taking something from the Beatles, he then would take something from the guy who was even bigger than them, which would have been to pass Michael Jackson with the most #1 songs ever. And what Drake believed is that between all of his lies and the impression that he just passed MJ and the Beatles, that this was going to win him back everything he ever needed and put him beyond hip-hop. But now, despite this, and despite how Drake has just used MJ's legacy and disrespected it in the worst way, Drake trying to use these legends to deceive everybody into believing he made a comeback has not worked, and ultimately, everything Drake has tried to pull off in this time has only shown that even beyond hip-hop, the guy has no regard for anybody who's ever paved the way in music. And with how bad Drake messed up, and at the same time how he wants to try and get a win, he, OVO, and all of the guys they have used for so long to keep people believing he was one of the top people in the music industry have really been trying to do everything they possibly can to just convince everyone in their entirety that this idea of a Drake comeback is real and that he's about to even reach heights that nobody has ever seen. And with that, we have been sitting through an effort on Drake's end, which has been trying to create one entire elaborate lie. And now, while a lot of what Drake is trying to do right now is make Kendrick Lamar look like an absolute liar, with fellow OVO members like Baca trying to even the playing field in rap and saying Kendrick Lamar is this awful person who lies and just does whatever he wants, which of course all of hip-hop is seeing through no matter how annoying it is. The much bigger play at hand here revolved around pushing the musical success of Drake to the forefront and trying to dangle accomplishments in people's faces to make them believe that his career has not been ruined in a way that he has still not come back from. And for Drake and his team, they perfectly aligned together 3 moments which they believe would be enough to get him back on top and surpass Kendrick Lamar. And now, what these were was first off this story of Drake passing a new total units moved in his career, which they purposefully updated these numbers now, again to just try and push this comeback more than they ever have, because that's how it works with these certifications. And with somebody like Kendrick, for example, he does not care about these and has not updated them in so long that Mr. Morale has not even been counted for or anything beyond that, so we don't even know those real numbers, and they have not been updated for Kendrick at all, so you can't even compare them. But of course for Drake, he's doing all of this to give everybody the biggest narratives and bait to talk about him with, and ultimately try to really make him look like he's doing amazing. And all this didn't stop here, as the next thing Drake was trying to do is push his name forward in conversations with all-time legends. So again, he can try and build this respect factor up and just change the narrative about what's going on. And so what he did here was have another milestone conveniently come out about how he has passed the Beatles on the Billboard 200 chart in terms of how long his albums have been charting there, which once again, just seeing Drake and the Beatles' names together would do decent for him regardless of the situation. But now, most importantly for Drake, and what he has been chasing with this Nokia record more than anything, and what he really wanted to get way before this beef but just couldn't, is not just another #1 song, but really for Drake it would become the #1 song, because Nokia's potential spot there would mean that Drake would pass MJ and become the artist with the most #1 records in the history of the Billboard Hot 100 chart. And so with this, The main play and what Drake believed was going to take him to the next level was this all-out push with the video and narratives he has been spreading to try and revise the beef and his image and then get Nokia to #1, which then if he did, Drake can once again try and use a legend like MJ as a prop that he can step over to try and assert greatness over. And I mean, with Drake trying to pull this off, not just does it make that whole part of Family Matters and the final beat switch where Drake tried to then diss Mike to diss Kendrick seem even more weird, and really in terms of the beef shows how desperate Drake was to create any sort of a bar or narrative that he could get off. But beyond that, it is also ironic considering how this beef started with the Prince and MJ comparisons from Kendrick Lamar on Like That. And now ultimately, as we are decently removed from all of that, we are seeing how Drake has no respect for either of them, just from the fact of how he has talked, treated, and used them as props to try and lift himself up without regard for anything else. And of course, as Drake keeps disrespecting these guys, and we are about to see just how bad what he tried to do to MJ was, what's really telling about everything with Drake and Kendrick and MJ and Prince is how in the end and with the Super Bowl and everything Kendrick has now done, Kendrick is now more like both of them musically because he really embodies some of their best characteristics, and Drake is just falling further and further behind. And really what put this into perspective more than ever is the fact that with this race that Drake has been trying to have with MJ to break this record, and then he can do ridiculous things if he was to get another #1, like brag about how he is better than him, which is just what he has been doing with the Beatles for quite some time now, is that if you actually break down this record and see the #1 songs MJ has versus what Drake has, you will realize that Drake is a bigger liar than ever who just uses the streaming game to his advantage and really stat pads in this era, as he has nowhere near the level of major songs that Mike has had in this spot. And really with Drake knowing how fake some of these songs are in terms of their #1 status, because again, and we will look at this, some of these songs literally only stayed at the #1 spot and in the top 10 as a whole for a single week. Overall, Drake is putting himself on a playing field that he does not belong in whatsoever. Because seriously, and why Drake even comparing himself to Mike and trying to put themselves in the same tier, even back on FPS with J. Cole, was already disrespectful in of itself, is because when you go #1 for #1, when you see that MJ's #1s are tracks like Billie Jean, Beat It, Rock With You, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, You Are Not Alone, The Way You Make Me Feel, Dirty Diana, and Ben. I mean, all of those songs are real culturally moving and defining tracks that you could still play anywhere to this day. And almost everyone will know the words, and that's what a real #1 and a real type of impact with your music looks like. And I mean, with MJ, in an era before guys like Drake could stat pad with streaming, that was what was needed to go #1. But now with Drake, aside from some of his older #1 songs in the first half of his career, when it comes to the tracks that have even put him near this record and where he has bragged about getting closer to Mike more and more, he's got Jimmy Cooks, 2C Slide, the Way 2 record from CLB, What's Next from Scary Hours 2, Slime You Out, and FPS with J. Cole. And again, just to put all of this into perspective, none of these songs even stayed in the top 10 for more than a single week, which shows how after the records dropped and people were done checking them out because it is a Drake record that everybody wants to hear because they are curious, none of this even stuck. And I mean, overall, Drake is really disrespecting somebody like MJ bad with this, because to try and act like you are equals or even close to surpassing him, and again, you're trying to go against a record like Billie Jean with What's Next? I mean, this has got to be a joke. And compare this to Kendrick Lamar in the past, and when an album like T-Pap got as much critical acclaim at the Grammys as Thriller, Kendrick Lamar said that he didn't even want to think about surpassing Mike or being near him because it's too much of an honor and Mike's a legend that means so much to him. And once again, when you see that and now see how Drake is trying to use this record he wants to take with Nokia as a stepping stone for a comeback, and again, it's not like he actually earned this record, but he has just played the system in this era where it's never been easier for him. You just see how different these guys are and how one respects the lineage of music while one only uses it for their personal gain. But really what the best part is about this entire chase to lie about being bigger than MJ for Drake is that despite everything he has been doing to try and get Nokia to that #1 spot, ultimately and ironically enough, Kendrick Lamar is the one who is stopping Drake from being able to use MJ's legacy and try to step on it, as Luther is still blocking Nokia from that #1 spot even with all of the push they are making. And really with this, it almost feels like an extended win of the beef for Kendrick and another L for Drake, because really beyond their own differences, with Kendrick not allowing Drake to get more annoying than ever and then just brag about being bigger and better than MJ of all people, he is helping the entire lineage of music just stay in a better place. Because really, what Mike did with all of the #1 songs in an era where people had to actually want to hear them for a long time actually meant something. And then with Drake, I mean, just look at the songs that went number one. Those are not actual real number ones that can be compared to everything else. And Drake has so many songs that are even bigger than them in their entirety, and nobody even remembers some of those tracks anymore because they were that forgettable. And I think once again for Drake going forward, while he may have thought that the decent success of Nokia, which is the first song he has had in quite a while that has stayed in the top 10 for more than a single week, all of a sudden meant that he wasn't a joke in rap and that he could be compared to MJ and the Beatles, he's got to leave all that stuff in the past because it's over and music is moving on from him. And no matter how this era where he has rigged the game may put it, he will never come close to the Beatles or MJ in terms of the greatness they had. And so with this, it is great to say that at least for now, with Kendrick Lamar and Luther staying at that number one spot, Drake will never have a chance to use and twist MJ's legacy for his own gain. And so now with all that said, let me know. What do you think about how Drake has tried to use and disrespect MJ's legacy for his own benefit? What do you think about what's going to happen from here with this? And do you think Nokia will ever go number one and he will be able to act like he is better than him in the end? Now, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about all of this. And now, if you made it to this point in the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps me out a ton. And now, if you want to see how right before this, Drake just got exposed so bad, and it is showing that he just made one of the very worst mistakes of his entire career, which is of course saying a lot, check out the suggested video.